Hey guys, stage 12, Tour de France. Let's go. Really awesome stage. Hautacom, epic climb. I've done this one before. I've done it at the Tour de France. I did well on this one, was up there with the favorites. And yeah, it's a pretty cool climb. It's pretty, the run in is kind of twisty, then it gets steep at the bottom. It's got some steep walls and steep sections in there, and then also has a lot of flat, kind of rolling, as we say in cinch, surfy type transitional sections where you looking to carry the momentum. Hard stage two, as well as it comes after, or Hodocom comes after a big climb prior to that. And yeah, so we'll just kind of break down what I saw from the key moments that happen in the race. And yeah, again, not going to give you the play by play, but just dive into some specific areas that I think are interesting. I've read on X kind of your guys' comments, and I'm going to try to hit on all the points that I read there and see if I can share some more insight in areas that you guys are interested in. So first and foremost, Tadej Pogačar wins a stage, incredible performance. And for me, this was critical, earth shaking, kind of legendary performance coming off the back of the crash the day before. Now, Tade does a really good job of basically downplaying all his things that he does. You'll almost never hear him uh, kind of patronize his own efforts or his own ability. He almost always deflects it to his team, or oversimplifies things, saying he felt good or he felt bad or whatever it is. And so in this crash situation, he does exactly the same thing where he says, yeah, there's nothing wrong. I just have some scrapes on my arm and my hip kind of hurts. But I know from experience, and actually, I just recently had a crash, a pretty heavy crash, about a month ago. And so I've had a refresher in this. And I think, had I not had that crash, I probably would feel pretty similar to the majority of the people on the internet, where it's like, well, he's not that badly hurt. And so, carry on. But I did eat shit. I did crash pretty hard. And I did kind of revisit all the feelings that I went through during my pro career when you do crash. And the reality is, it messes you up. And it doesn't just mess you up in terms of the abrasions and the bruising. It messes you up in terms of your energy level. It messes you up kind of your central nervous system, and it messes you up on your activation, your ability to use your different muscle groups. And so as cyclists, we're often running on the edge of performance. And in Tade's case, for sure, he is on the edge of body weight, physical fitness, mental strength. His central nervous system is on edge after a really hard first week of the Tour de France. He's been dealing with a lot of media, travel. If you just add one more thing like a crash or having to heal from a crash, having your body doing these things, that just can just put you over the edge. And for me, when I had my crash a month ago, I was balancing my business, working with my family, doing my own training, and just that little bit. And again, I'm older, I'm 47, but just that little bit extra energy that my body was using to heal just threw off all my ability to do the things as well as I wanted to do them. And so going into this stage, we know that Tade wants to win this stage. It's Hautacom. It's the first mountain top finish of the Tour de France. It's iconic. And it also is the place where he essentially lost, nail in the coffin in the Tour de France in 2022. And so there's a good chance that we know now after the fact, so I don't need to speculate. We know that he wanted to win this race. We knew that he wanted to sort of put his revenge, I guess, from 2022. And he wanted to stamp his authority on the 2025 Tour de France. And if we look at how he's ridden the first 12, or at this point now 12, but the first 11 stages prior to it, he has ridden more conservatively than we have ever seen him ride any race, let alone the Tour de France. And so for me, watching from the outside, that means that he is focused on doing a phenomenal mountaintop finish here, and most likely all the other mountaintop finishes or the mountain stages that are coming, the mountain time trial tomorrow, the big mountain stage on Saturday. We know that, or we can speculate that that is the reason why he was so uber conservative in the first part of this race. If you also look at his race schedule, he did the classics, but he has had a pretty limited, race day type schedule going into this season. So we know that he's putting a lot of emphasis on this race, wanting to go deep, wanting to go hard, and do a phenomenal performance in this mountain stage that Hautacom. And so this crash for sure upset his body, and most likely, probably, it could have ended his Tour de France. But real talk, I think going into the stage, he had two options. One, and I said this in the podcast yesterday, ride defensive, like don't take any risks, manage your body, how it's doing after the crash. Or two, go offense, stick to the plan that you have been focused on, and overcome the sensations that you have in your body, overcome the lower energy, overcome the challenges that you now have and faced with because of this crash, overcome those things and stay on track with going after the win in a dominating fashion. And so it was amazing to see him stay true to his plan, stay completely committed to winning the race, and not only committed to winning the race, but winning it in absolute dominating fashion, attacking from the bottom of the last climb, the same way that he did in the Dauphiné, using Narvaez to do an incredible lead out, and then him doing that seated acceleration, high power, longer acceleration off of that, and then riding off, and then locking into that high threshold, super high threshold power, and then trying to maintain that to the finish line. And so watching that in comparison to the Dauphiné, it looked like a complete replica of that stage. And so now we can go back and look at that and say, yep, that's kind of his template. That's the new 2025 Tadej signature. And if you read my X commentary up until this point, I did call that out earlier this season, where it does seem that this big attack at the bottom of these climbs straight into this high threshold power, that is the new signature Tadej Pogačar in 2025. He's moved away from the short, explosive, incredible surge Tadej. He's moved away from, following, having the teammates pull for the majority of the climb, and then doing one of these big attacks and all this. And you're probably asking yourself, or at least asking me, why has he moved away from these things? And that is because it is a Visma Jonas killer that he is moving away from playing the game that Jonas likes to play. We know he's worked on his short acceleration. We know that his power to weight ratio is extremely good. We know that he's super strong and super good in that tactical surge type battle up a long climb. And we know that he can follow that slow grind, that slow burn that traditionally we've seen GC riders up until this year really execute and use. That's a normal kind of format where you put your team on the front, you cook them, just like we saw Visma do on the second to last climb today. Go on the front, you cook everyone behind, you melt them, you ride your teammate, which was Sepp Kuss years and years and years for Jonas. You let him ride, and then it's boom, one or two attacks close to the top. You get a small gap or a minute or something like that, and you take the victory that way. Well, Tadej, who has been very attuned to what Visma is doing, has changed the game. He's constantly evolving. He's constantly doing new things, and this is just the new signature Tadej 2025, which is evolved from what we saw in 2024, where he's throwing these long bombs. He's going from far out, and so now it's pretty much, I would say, the hardest thing to do, but the most baller thing to do as a GC rider is to be able to drop everybody in the moment where it is the hardest on the climb. Everybody, so listeners, listen up. In Grand Tours, in Pro World Tours racing, the traditional way of doing these climbs is the team goes full gas at the bottom. They make the pace super hard where barely anyone can hold on. And then they eventually slow down after they've dropped the majority of the people. They regroup, they recover, and then they start throwing attacks. And so what Tadej is doing now is he is nuking the bottom of these climbs super hard like they had done, or even harder than they have done the lead outs in the years past. But then he is making his winning move at the bottom, and he is going from the very top or all the way to the very top. And what this does is it protects him from the way that Jonas traditionally likes to race. Now, what is Jonas going to have to do? He's going to have to relearn how to do this new style of racing over the off season, or maybe try to learn more of this Tour de France. Maybe if he goes to the Vuelta, try to improve with it there, and then try and move that forward to 2026. So Tadej is always on the front. He's always innovating. And it's funny because his interviews, and I watched them today, and I couldn't really place exactly. They always seem similar to me, but to another rider. But, I couldn't really place it. And today it just hit me. He is kind of following the Peter Sagan approach of just oversimplifying super complicated high-level stuff where people literally cannot follow what the heck you're doing. The only thing that they get from your interview is that it's like, man, you're having fun and it doesn't really seem like you're trying hard. But I can tell you from my experience and from what I'm seeing, he is trying super hard. He is super calculated. Do not let these interviews fool you. This guy is on his A game. He is an absolute baller. And for me, I am 100% blown away that he was able to overcome that crash and still go forward with his original plan, execute it, win, and ultimately win the Tour de France. I think that I said in my podcast yesterday, if he goes and dominates today, the race is over. I don't think anyone's going to argue with me, or I'm sure everyone is saying that. And, I think at this point, he's only going to get better, barring complete disaster if he crashes or he gets sick or something like that. But we've kind of already gone through that, right? I think he's already been a bit sick in this Tour de France, and he's already crashed. And so I would say right now, the road is open. We are going to see some phenomenal performances. He survived the toughest moments of this year's Tour de France for him. And I think now we're going to see what he's been cooking all off season. And I think, if you're a fan of Tadej or you're just a fan of cycling, you're really going to enjoy these next performances, because I think they're going to be top level and they're going to be outside of what we thought was possible in cycling. So what also I think is cool about his performance today is for sure his teammates recognize the crash, recognize the pain he had been in, probably also recognize the things that he had gone through with Visma throwing everything at him. Sounds like there was some illness in the team as well. And so by him rising to the occasion in this super tough moment, we can pretty much guarantee that his teammates are going to up the ante. If you're around that, and I've been around leaders like this, like Tadej, where you just see them overcome massive adversity. You see them do incredible things at 80% or in areas less than 80%. And you're just like, wow, I didn't even think it was possible to do that at 100%. I think as pro athletes and as athletes in general, a lot of times we find ourselves just always looking for those magical moments, those good legs, always looking to feel 100% to try and break records or do our best performances or win races or set our PRs or whatever it is. And it's moments like these when riders like Tadej, they step up, they overcome massive adversity where it looks like the game's over, or at least they're going to be limited. I think his teammates are going to bleed through their eyes coming up, and they know this guy. I mean, they already knew this guy was on another level, but now they know this guy is like something else at this race. You just that level of energy, you just cannot ignore. So super cool to see that performance. And I think, as an athlete, having crashed a month ago, going through what I went through, coming back from that, and then seeing him not even bat an eye and go and do what he wanted to do, incredible. I think that's super awesome. What I also think, just want to touch on another Tadej thing. I'm going to try to hit all my points. I've got them written down here on my phone. Another cool thing that I'd like to talk about, we'll talk about in future podcasts here, is what are some things that Tadej does to be at a level above everyone else. One of the areas that I think he's taken to a new height is core strength. I've always been an advocate for core training. I was maybe one of the earlier people that really went all in with it. And I did it for, injury prevention. I think most people did it for injury prevention and activation. And I think Tadej has leveled it up and created a extremely strong core, and specifically in the glutes as well, hip flexors. And he has turned this new core strength into the ability to create higher force and be able to maintain this high cadence with high force and have that incredible stability in those hips, in those glutes, in that core. And so what I think that also happened here, which helped him recover from this crash or not get as hurt in this crash, was that the fact that when he fell, he did not get as hurt as maybe someone else due to this higher core strength. Normally, when you fall on your hip like he did, and you hit your you hit your side like he did, he ran his shoulder into the curb. You could see these things. Normally, when you have that, those muscles that get hit, even though that they're not broken, they shut down because they know that they need to repair. They're not 100% sure how badly injured they are, and the body typically takes a very conservative approach, no matter how big or small the injury is. A lot of times it just turns off that connection between the brain and the muscle. And hitting the hip like that, like he did, generally cyclists don't really have the strongest hips. And so a blow like that often creates many more problems for a cyclist because that muscle is already not super strong. There's not the best neuromuscular pathways going through it. And that little hit, a lot of times it'll just completely shut off. So I think him having much stronger pathways, much stronger muscles, did not allowed him to either reactivate those muscles quite well going into it. We know we've seen his activation program that he sometimes shows on social media, but I think that those muscles that are being trained daily, most likely they're so connected with his mind and his body and everything. I think that they were able to continue functioning quite well despite the big hit. So I think that is one of the reasons why he was still able to perform at a super high level. Next question that I'm going to try to take a stab at is, some people had mentioned like he came up, I think he did 35:08, and the Hautacom record was 34 40 or something like this, so about 28 seconds short of the record. People are wondering, like, why didn't he break it? And I think the answer is two parts. The first one is the crash. I think the crash did limit him to some degree. And I think he probably would have, if you looked at the watts per kilo and you looked at the calculations, it does seem that he will be able, or he did perform potentially less than he's capable. And it's likely that he could have performed higher. And I think that's due to the crash. So I think he could have gone that little bit faster and gotten that record. I'm sure he trained for that. I'm sure he knew. We saw the Aero bike come out today. I'll talk about that in a second, but potentially that maybe he knew his speed and he knew that bike was going to be at an advantage over the course of some of those sectors on Hautacom. So, I think the crash limited him a little bit. I also think it was super hot, and it came this stage has come after the absolute onslaught by Visma for 12 days straight. And I think even the best rider, and we'll get to this after, is going to suffer from that. So it's also possible that the combination of the crash and some fatigue from the first half of the Tour de France led to him being a little bit below what he is capable of doing. Is that okay? 100%. And this is an important part to hit home with you listeners, is that oftentimes when we're racing, the numbers that we're doing in racing is less than what we are capable of. So if you are in competition yourself, you're training for competition, a lot of times you're going to see lower numbers in your races than what you're capable of doing at home in training. It's the same for Tadej and everyone else. And depending on how hard the race is and how hot it is, and if there's a crash, sometimes you're going to do less than you're capable of, but it's still enough to win. And in this case, to win dominantly and ultimately, put himself in position to win the Tour de France. So some good insight on that. So next, let's talk about the Aero bike. Now this is interesting to me because when this bike came out, I looking at it just like you guys, I was kind of like, what is this thing? This does not look light. It does not look super fast. Everyone's saying it's super fast, or at least the people from Colnago are saying it's super fast. And it kind of seemed like they launched it publicly before the riders like Tadej had even been testing it or even riding it. And so me being on kind of that side of R&D throughout my career, I don't like it I did not like it when companies would just say, hey, here's the new bike that we've been working on without your input. Can you ride it now and win with it? And so we can sell it. And so I always wanted to give input along the way. And it kind of looked like from the outside that Tadej really didn't spend a lot of time testing this bike and perhaps showing input. It did look like the seat position being forward, they took his measurements into effect and how he likes to be set up on the bike. But the question is, was he riding prototypes of this bike? Did he help design it in terms of the feel, the stiffness, responsiveness? And if you looked at kind of the beginning of the year till now, it looked like he kept trying to race it, but maybe his best results did not come on this bike. In fact, it seemed like they came, on the climbing bike. So why did he ride this bike? Well, the first obvious answer is because it would be, more aerodynamic, and his intent was to go extremely fast on the climb, and those aerodynamics would help on those transitional parts of Hautacom and help him gain time over the rivals. It does have a weight penalty, but as we know from cycling, that with more speed, the weight penalty typically goes down. So with so much power that these riders are producing now, with incredible technique and really high cadence, the speeds and better equipment, better technology with aerodynamics, the speeds are higher. And so it does check out that this bike, could help him in this scenario. And it looks like maybe it did help him. Now, was this incredible marketing for Colnago? Absolutely. Could it have gone the other way? Could he have maybe been suffering from effects of the crash, been on this Aero bike, raced up the mountain, got dropped and beat? Now that would be kind of a horrible marketing situation for Colnago, because people would be asking questions. Well, why did you ride the heavier Aero bike up the hill? And could that have been the reason, this bike is the problem? We saw this sort of type of thing happen in the Dauphiné in the time trial, when he, I think, held back in the time trial, but people interpreted that as he doesn't like his time trial bike. There were so many articles and pictures of him holding a Cervelo, and people writing on social media saying that he's not happy with his Colnago time trial bike. We know this is not the case at this point, but in the moment, it seemed kind of logical. And so that same kind of ripple effect could happen in the case if he came up short on this. So by him starting on this Aero bike, this guy meant business. He's there to win. And that he's risking it for the biscuit. And I think the biscuit is a nice bonus from Klanago, rightfully so. Is like if you win a mountain stage on, especially the first mountain stage in the Tour de France on this Y1, like here's your bonus or whatever it is. I would just guess that maybe something like that was set up, and knowing Tadej, he goes and risks it for the biscuit, gets, has the advantage from the aerodynamics, doesn't mind the weight because he's so freaking strong and he's in such amazing form right now, wins on this particular bike. It's an amazing marketing opportunity for Klanago. I would say sales of that bike are set for the time being. And I think, rightfully so, he probably got some kind of bonus. I don't know. Who knows? But that's my guess on that. I think it's interesting to at least look at that because, in pro cycling, the equipment is always a highly discussed thing. We're always looking for the fastest, best cutting edge equipment that we can. And in this case, like it's counterintuitive going up a mountaintop finish and up a mountain stage with an aerodynamic bike and prioritizing that over the lightest possible option. So interesting little tidbit there. It will be interesting to see. I'm assuming he's going to stay on that bike from here on out. If he changes the bike, then we know what that situation was. But I think he's going to stay on the bike. And yeah, good for Klanago. I think that's an amazing marketing opportunity this guy created for them with his incredible win. So now let's move on. We got our Tadej, wins the stage, ultimately wins the Tour de France, knock on wood. But yeah, I think he's going to take a lot more victories from here on out. I guess we could hit on that real quick. Do you think he's trying to beat his record of 6 victories last year? This year, yes, I think absolutely. He's got 3 halfway through the Tour de France. All the ripe stages are looking him in the eye moving forward. I'm guessing that he's going to go for victories and try to knock out that 7. Is he going to break Cavendish's Tour de France record? I think that is an absolute yes. That is definitely going to happen. So enjoy it, guys. Like it's really interesting looking on the internet, on X, and all the hate around like success. And I think as a cycling fan, it's best to learn to enjoy the performances and look past the personalities or who you're a fan of in terms of like what team do you support or whatever. I think the best way to really enjoy the sport is kind of unhitch maybe some of those connections that you have to like, oh, I'm a, whatever, only this rider supporter, and just kind of look at everything and try to enjoy the performances for what they are. Because like the sport's too hard. This sport is too hard. And every race you go to a new race and there's a new rider that's winning. There's a new rider that's dominating. And so in this case, I think it's extremely rare to see a rider like Tadej that is innovating as well as dominating in the sport. I know from my perspective, having a son, a 15-year-old son, I think Tadej is an incredible role model. The way he handles himself, the way he innovates, the way he performs, the way he gives respect to his competitors, the way he gives respect to his teammates. Yeah, it's hard to be anything less than supportive of that. I get it. Nobody, like everyone wants to see a close race and everyone wants to see new winners. And yeah, maybe people don't like him because of this and that and the other thing. But I think you got to sit back and just enjoy. If you look at the peloton, if you look at the people that waited for him after he crashed, I would say that if you interviewed anyone in that peloton, I think they would echo the same feelings that I have right now, that people are impressed and they enjoy, they're encouraged, they're inspired racing with him. I don't think they are frustrated or upset or let down or skeptical or all the things that you kind of read on social media. I don't think the peloton feels that way. I think it is the opposite. I think they are very much impressed and inspired by the level of racing that he is performing at. So here we go. Let's move on to Visma. And I'm not going to like stay here too long because, if you've been listening to my podcast, this is podcast. I haven't done one every single stage, but almost every single stage. And every podcast I talked about Visma strategy, too aggressive, burning up their team, using too much effort. And they're going to have to pay the bill. Having done the Tour de France myself and feeling those first stages in the first half of the race, they are so hard and so intense just riding them, let alone being aggressive every single day, like just not crashing, not missing splits, aside from pulling on the front or throwing attacks yourself. They are so hard. And so the strategy that Visma used to try and rip the race, and they did decimate the race in the first 12 stages. They ripped the peloton to pieces almost every day. And so that level of ability and talent and hard work and fitness that they had is amazing. But where I've had trouble with their strategy from day one is the fact that their number one rival, Tadej Pogačar, the guy they're trying to beat, is better than them. Okay? So you have to think that this strategy works best if you are maybe competing against someone the same or less ability to you. And I would say the same would be even risky with this strategy. You would almost have to go with like less than you. The reason for that is because in cycling, if you are throwing attacks or you're pulling and you're trying to hurt someone or you're trying to drop them or you're trying to wear them out, the idea is that you're using your strength to reduce their strength. Now, if their zones are higher than your zones and they're drafting off you, then you are lowering your strength faster than they are lowering their strength. And that's simply put what happened in this first part of this race, where you have a guy, and let's also be real here. Tadej has been on the television doing Tadej shit for 2 years now on the television. So if you're a Visma rider or staff or strategist or whatever it is, you are literally watching this guy dominate cycling in ways that we've never seen before and innovating in these ways. And so to think that you are going to somehow go from where you are to better than this by not actually competing against this individual, I think is far-fetched. And so to kind of craft this, Dr. Evil strategy on the top of an altitude mountain and say, hey, like, we are going to destroy this guy by, a death of 1,000 paper cuts. And we're going to like use our, and I've said this many times too, like the guys they have on their team are outright champions themselves. So you're going to take your Giro winner and you're going to take your Paris-Nice winner and you're going to take your Tour de France stage winner, and you're going to take your like everything winner, Wout van Aert, right? Like you can take all these guys and you're going to say, all right, like paper cuts, like kill this guy that nobody's been able to kill the last 2 years. It's just kind of dreaming, right? Like it's heroic. It's it's like David and Goliath a little bit, right? Like you're like, okay, but I don't think that it is a good strategy. And I feel for, and the reason why I've been so vocal on this podcast is because like I feel for this because I've been in similar team strategies like this before, where it was like, hey, I don't think this is in my best interest and we're destroying me. I hope that my leader benefits from this, but I also in my heart don't think this is helping him either. And I assume that Visma most likely as a team collectively should have felt this way, where we're like, yeah, I don't know if we're hurting this guy. Like, he seems mad at me. He's yelling at me. He's upset that I'm in front of his water bottle. Like, I'm a little uncomfortable with this. Like, and they've got this feud and this rivalry kind of out of nowhere because, you know, I think deep down inside, they both have tremendous respect for one another. And so it's hard, obviously, for Tadej to get like these shots taken constantly at him. And I think it's hard for the team to like reduce their ability of an overall good performance to just try and take these shots at Tadej when they don't seem to be working. So the strategy today ultimately showed its ugly face where, and I think probably the best, you know, picture of what the strategy is in a nutshell is the moment when I believe Sepp is on the front and Matteo Jorgensen and Simon Yates are dropped, and you have the Jorgensen being distanced behind. You have the team then on the radio. What do we do? We had this plan, and now the team is almost gone. We still have 50 some K to go. We still have this mountain to go, and we still have the last climb to go. Like, what do we go? What do we do? And so they slow down. But at that point, I think it was too late. But I think that, again, showcased the strategy in a nutshell that, like, they basically kind of killed themselves trying to kill Tadej. And this moment that happened on the climb was brought by themselves. They chose to do a crazy lead out into the bottom of the climb. They chose to ride a super hard pace. They chose to keep going when obviously people had, like Matteo, had bad legs. And then they chose, you know, to still keep pushing and still keep riding, even though when Matteo came back, he was at the absolute limit. So, you know, at that point, I think that showcases that this strategy was not successful. And then later on, we see Tadej drop Jonas, and then Jonas loses the most he's ever lost in the first mountain stage in the Tour de France, 2 minutes and 10 seconds, but with the bonus 2 minutes and 14 seconds. And so, first narrative that we're going to squash on the internet is there's all kinds of like upset people that's like, wait a second, Jonas isn't even as good as 2025 or 2022. That is not correct. He is better than that. And in fact, he's better than he was last year. We saw his climbing performance as Dauphiné. We've heard him say it himself. He looks amazing. He's been amazing all race. He's followed Tadej in his attacks, and he's thrown 1 million attacks, and his team has thrown 1 million attacks. He was splitting the peloton with him pulling in crosswinds on the first stages. This guy is amazing. He's in amazing condition. He was empty. He was low on glycogen today. And the reason for that is all the amazingness that he has had being scattered and spent all over the last 12 days. In the Tour de France, while, and this is the important part for everyone to understand, while Tadej was not doing these things. So in the Visma folks in the space station, when they're doing the calculations and they're saying blah, 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 I think they also should have radioed up to the space station and said, hey guys, he's not participating with what we're doing. He's not pulling in the crosswind. He's not throwing any attacks like we expected him to. He's not countering my attacks. He's covering Matteo Jorgensen, but then not attacking himself. He, you know, hello, like this is different than we thought. You know, he's following Remco instead of closing the gap himself. He's riding further back in the peloton than he normally does with his team around him, protecting him. Even in the sprint finishes, he wasn't up there battling it out in the sprint finishes. He was sitting a little bit further back, conserving energy. I mean, I don't know why they didn't radio to the space station and say, hey guys, like, does this change our strategy? We're out here trying to scorch the earth, and this guy is guy's air conditioning on. He's not even in the heat. Like, what do we do? that's a question that I have, and hopefully the journalists can ask out there in the road and say, did you, Jonas or Matteo or anyone else, like voice your concern for this tactic that like maybe this guy Tadej, the best rider in the world, best of all time, is not even taking the bait whatsoever. He doesn't seem to be using as much energy as us, and could this be ultimately hurting us even more than normal? Which it did. It did. Jonas was not a bad version of himself today. He was just simply empty. And quite honestly, if I could do that time with low glycogen, that would be freaking amazing. He still went up to climb super fast. He still got second on the stage. He's still second in GC, and he had a really bad day. And so, unfortunately, the way that he's arrived at this moment is that he has depleted himself over the last 12 days. And so it's going to be difficult for him to get back to his normal level in this Tour de France. It will be interesting to see what happens next. It is lucky that the time trial is tomorrow. And so typically on a time trial, or for sure on this time trial day, they're going to have a late morning with a ride easy in the morning, and then a shorter afternoon that the time trial will start much later in the evening. And so that gives him tons of time to refuel. He'll have time to have a breakfast in the morning, then go on his bike ride, and then he can pound the while his glycogen storages are open, he can pound the carbs, load up after the pre-ride in the morning. Then he can have a lunch, can even like kind of take a nap or whatever, eat another meal, and then even eat another meal, and then go out and do the time trial, and then have a massive dinner that night. And that should at least get him more closer to where he's been. But the problem that he's also going to face, and Matteo and everyone else is going to face, is going to be when your muscles are damaged like they are from what they did in the first 12 days, you're going to have some problems reabsorbing the fuel because the muscle fibers are damaged. So that's going to be tough. Okay, so now let's go to the next thing that I'd like to squash, the next narrative around the Visma thing. And, or I mean, maybe it's not really a narrative, but I think it's at least like worth talking about, is why when we have these bad performances like the time trial and today, why the people don't look at the strategy. When they interview the people on the side of the road, and that could just because they don't want to say it, but it's like after the time trial, Jonas, what happened? I don't know. We're going to investigate it. They talk to the team. The team says, we don't know. We're going to investigate it. Today, they interview them. They interview the team, and they say, what happened? And the team says, we're not sure. We're going to investigate it. Matteo, what happened? I don't know. He even said, it's on me. I had a bad day. Bro, like, I feel horrible for you. Like, it's not on you, man. Like, you've attacked 3 billion times in this Tour de France. Like, I think you've done great. Like, I think having a bad day after all that is okay. I think it sucks. I would love to see you on the podium. I'm super bummed out for you on that side. But I think it's safe to say that maybe we spent too much energy prior to this. The worst part of this whole thing is listening to the team director when he's asked about Matteo, and he suggests that, like, well, and this reminds me of like when I raced a little bit, some of the PlayStation type directing that goes on. But, you know, he said, well, the plan wasn't for Matteo to struggle on the climb. All of a sudden we're doing the plan, and then I hear on the radio, Matteo's dropped. This is not the plan. Well, like, we're human beings, folks. Like, we have to deviate from the plan sometimes because we're human, and we can't attack 4 billion times in the Tour de France in the first 12 days of the race. And so it's crazy to not hear any level of ownership, at least publicly. And do they need to do that? No. Maybe at home in the hotel after the time trial, they go, oh, guys, maybe we all had bad time trials because we attacked too much and we've been too aggressive. Like, maybe we should tone it down. But they didn't change that. So then it's now we go to the mountain stage. Oh, wow. All of our leaders that have been attacking the first part of the race are all dropped on the mountain stage. So maybe we need to change some things moving forward, whatever it is. Too late for that now. Anyway, the last thing I want to hit home on this Visma thing is like Sepp Kuss. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Sepp Kuss was amazing today. Why was he so good? Why was Sepp Kuss so good? Well, if you look back to all those 12 stages, Sepp Kuss was not attacking in those 12 stages at the front. He was nowhere to be found. What was the other guy that was good today? Simon Yates. Who's won the stage so far? Simon Yates. Was Simon Yates in the first week of this race at the front attacking, doing all kinds of nonsense? No, he wasn't. So the two guys that like overperformed today, or at least performed better than Jorgensen, and I would say you could argue Jonas, because Jonas's level is sky high. We're the people that were not doing this stuff in the first part of the tour. So I think that also helps support this theory of why they didn't perform super well today or the time trial, the two biggest critical GC tests. So I think they have to look at their strategy as a whole, but more importantly, look at how they communicate as a team, because it's okay to come up with these strategies. It's okay to like sit up there in this place, the space station, and formulate the ultimate like Dr. Evil plan to take down the greatest cyclist of all time. That's fine. Do it. But once you get out there and you start seeing this, like, hey, this guy's really good, that's not going to work, guys. Let's pivot. Let's change some stuff. I think that's where they can really improve moving forward. A little bit better communication, because the riders are top level riders. The staff, they are top level staff. Everybody's amazing. There's no sense. There's no shame in coming up with awesome, crazy plans. But I think when so much is at stake and such high level riders are out there, I think everyone owes it to one another to just have a little bit better communication and collectively be part of the decision making. I think that would help them perform better. So anyway, super bummer to see Matteo lose time. Also bummer to see Jonas lose so much time. I always want to see the best rider win. I think Tadej's the best rider. I think rightfully so. He deserves to win. I'm happy that he won. But I do think had they raced differently in the first part of this race, the gap would have been much smaller at the finish line, much smaller. So that moves me into the next part of this podcast. We're already 47 minutes into this, so I'm going to try to rock through this, but I have a lot to say. Next part is, how do you beat Tadej? But like, how do you do it? So, and this is, I see this a lot on my X, and people are just saying, well, okay, Tom, like, scorched earth is like their only option. And how do you beat this guy? How do you do it? And so the first and foremost answer that I have to this is, you have to first play to your strengths. Okay. So anytime you're building a strategy or you're going into a race, you can't get wrapped up on the past. You can't say like, well, 2 years ago we won this race this way, so we're going to keep doing that. Or we can't say, I was a tour champion in 2023, so I rightfully am going to take it in 2025. You have to like take a step back and say, where am I at? And the truth of the matter is, Tadej Pogačar is the best rider in the world. He won the Tour de France last year. He's won pretty much every race this year. He's beat you in pretty much every race since 2023. And he has improved in every area that you beat him in previously. And so before you put the cart before the horse and you say, okay, we need to just go double all in on beating this guy, you need to go all in on winning your personal ride. And since we call this winning your ride, it is about looking at your strengths and your weaknesses and maximizing your strengths and minimizing your weaknesses and making personal wins there. If you look at this race, if Jonas rode Tadej every day to the finish line, or as close as he would as possible, that is a win. Okay? That is a win. If he is on the wheel of like the first two stages that Tadej attacked and Jonas finished or followed him right on the wheel, You can't tell me otherwise that wasn't amazing for all the Jonas fans and for Jonas himself and for the Visma people. That was a win. He did not win the race, but it was a win. He was there. That's the kind of stuff that I think they should have, and they still need to go all in, because you must do that over and over and over again before you can start thinking about how you're going to beat him. You need to go back to the drawing board and say, this guy's really good. And let me make this clear. And this is important for us as individuals that are in competition and our local races, or we're training or whatever. Like, it's okay for other people to be better than us. It's okay. In fact, it's reality. And so we don't need to be caught up on trying to be better than someone all the time. We can look at and say, where am I at personally? And the narrative going into this Tour de France from Jonas's mouth was, I'm better than ever. I think he is better than ever. I think he looks better than ever. He's made all the right changes. He's upped his game in all the right places. The problem was they've taken better than ever Jonas and they stuck him into another game that's not how Jonas wins the Tour de France. In fact, it's how somebody else wins the Tour de France, or in fact, it's how you would win the Tour de France if you were on PlayStation and you could do whatever you wanted, unlimited lives and unlimited energy or whatever it is. Maybe that's how you would win the Tour de France. But Jonas, he needs to go up the climbs, and he needs to try to race the climbs super well, and he needs to conserve energy for the climbs, and then he needs to try to win on the climbs. You know, that's how I think they should at least approach this whole thing, is focus on getting Jonas the best support, the best setup for every single stage, support this guy, and so he can go up against this maniac machine, Tadej Pogačar, and hopefully get as close as possible. I think we're losing the plot here, where it's like, we must win, we must try to win, it's everything to win, all in to win, win or lose, second means nothing. Like, guys, none of that shit's true. Second in the Tour de France means everything. Look at all those sponsors that's on Visma. Do you think Nike signed up because they went to Nike and they said, hey, this guy's going to win the Tour de France this year? Nike's smart enough to look, oh, who won the Tour de France last year? Oh, Tadej Pogačar. Oh, I think he wins all the races. Yeah, he wins all the races. Okay, cool. We like your brand. We like who you are. We like your energy. We like what you're doing. We like your development teams. We like Visma. We like Sepp Kuss. We like Matteo Jorgensen. Sign the contract. That's how they're getting these sponsors. Like, people are okay with second place. Okay? So, not a big problem here to try and work with Jonas to be the best possible Jonas as possible. And when we get there, guess what? Then we can start talking about winning. But we have not been close to winning in a really long time. So therefore, going and smashing our heads against the wall prior to those stages that favor us makes absolutely no sense. And so I would have recommended a more conservative strategy, focused on getting Jonas recovered after his crash last year, back his confidence, get him nice and strong, let him get up there. Maybe he'll win some stages, maybe he stays on Tadej's wheel, maybe super close. And then from that point, you look and see if there's an opportunity to win the race. But if there's not, that's okay. We are going to do the best possible race we can for Jonas Vingegaard. Matteo Jorgensen, hello. This guy is an uber talent. He is the future. We know this guy is going to win a Grand Tour. We know he is going to win so many more races. And so it's not a bad thing also to build a strategy around him and setting him up to learn how to win one of these things, being up front, racing aggressively in the finals, but not smashing his head against the wall with this massive mosh pit that we saw the last 12 days, letting him get to the mountains in a good spot, going for some good performances in the climbs. If he needs to get on the front for Jonas, he can, but if not, he can follow Tadej and Jonas the best he can and get a great result. That's the strategy that I would have recommended. I know everyone that plays a PlayStation wants to say, no, let's just like all or nothing to win. Nobody cares about second place or whatever. That is 100% absolute bullshit. And I think the step for these guys to go, if they truly want to win the Tour de France, is you're going to have to get in the trenches. You're going to have to race your best race, and you're going to have to keep doing it until you close the gap officially to the guy that's winning everything right now. No shame in that, because that's what the rest of the world has to do. That's what we have to do in business and in life. If there's someone better, if someone raises the bar, we have to do our best performance and try to get our bar close to where they have the bar before we can start trying to beat them or get to that next level. So that's my, I don't know, $100 cents or whatever on this. That was a big rant, but that's what I feel strongly about that. Okay. I believe that this team is amazing. I believe that Jonas has everything that is needed to win more of these tours, to get back on top. I think he just needs a better plan around him, and I think he just needs a patient and a time to get it done. Okay, moving on. I know that was a long rant. We're gonna get to Remco. I think that was a phenomenal performance. Getting dropped in the absolute cookout by the Visma folks kind of looked like, I mean, I was there with all you people too, where it's like, this guy's dropped shit. Like, we thought that he would be up there. I think every sign was that he'd be up there. It was a bit of a shock, and I'm sure it was him, to get dropped. But the best part of it was he kept going. He used his team. He stayed calm. He went past all the carnage. He caught back up, and he ended up finishing close to the front guys that finished behind Jonas. He wasn't even that far behind Jonas. He's still in third place overall. We know he had a bad day. He's going to get better. And so hats off, not only an incredible physical performance, but mental performance. And it's a good lesson to all of you and me and everyone else that we should not become fortune tellers when we have a bad moment in any particular race or any part of our life, and we try to extrapolate and we say, well, this is how it is for me in this moment. I can see it only getting worse from here on out, and I'm going to quit. He did not quit. He kept going, and you got to think, this guy, for sure, after the shit he's been through this year, he's been hot and cold so many times. He's got so many people giving him criticism and feedback. In the steam is coming out of his ears out there on that climb. He's thinking, oh my goodness, like the haters are going to hate so hard. Like, oh man, like I need to be better, blah, blah, blah. But he did it. He pulled through. And I think he should go on X and on social media and grab every comment that someone left. It's like, oh, there's Remco. He sucks. He'll never get back, blah, blah, blah. He said he was better, but he wasn't, all that stuff. Stick that on your handlebars for tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Look at those comments and then show the world and everyone else what you're made out of and how strong you are and how you are going to nail that third place on the podium. I think he can do it. I think it was impressive how he turned it around today. And I thought it was an example of what we all should aspire to being able to do. Don't count yourself out. Push to the very end. You never know what you'll accomplish. In his case, he stayed in it. He's still on the podium. Bam. Last thing I'll talk about is the young whippersnappers. Really cool to see all of them right after Jonas. And it's kind of funny because like Remco, he's in the white jersey, but he's like almost the oldest of all the whippersnappers that were all around him. And so the future is bright. There was a lot of really great young riders that were just behind the first two in the battle. We have Lipowitz, that amazing performance. He comes in third on the stage. He broke the chain between him and Primoz Roglic. I don't really think it was a big problem. Primoz is, I think, a pretty easygoing guy. When things aren't going well for him, he's not going to hold you to staying with him. And so it seemed like he said, yeah, go do your own race. No problem. He wasn't that far behind anyway, but it was cool seeing Lipowitz up there, showcasing his ability. And yeah, he's in contention for a top 5 overall in Tour de France. So that's exciting. And yeah, he just seems like a big talent. Every time I've seen him in a Grand Tour, he's been at the front anyway. No shock there. And if you look at his technique and you look at him on the bike, dude, he's got so much room for improvement. So he could be your next super champion like Tadej and Jonas in the making. So that's cool. Johannesson overcame, crash scandal the night before, where Chopgate or whatever you want to call it. For sure, he did not sleep super well. For sure, he was stressed out. He even had his team riding on the front to protect his GC, as you had riders up front, that the Ineos rider up front that was taking his overall GC spot, put his team on the front, said, hey guys, I'm going to do, I want to fight for or Rodriguez was up front. Sorry, had a blank there real quick on his name. They chased the breakdown, kept it close, and then he delivered in the final with another great performance. He is one of those riders that you can see his power numbers online. So go over there to Strava. You can see his performance in the climb. He's a lighter rider. So if you've been checking out Quinn Simmons, he's a heavier rider. His numbers are insane. You might want it for lighter rider numbers. You can kind of check out his numbers, and you'll notice that they are a little bit more sane. They're still crazy. They're more like my numbers, so I like to see it because I'm like, him and I are more or less the same size. I like seeing, what the power is like in the race. So go over and check it out. Pretty awesome. Onley was up there. My boy Onley, like that guy, I think he's going to be incredible. He's got a fast finish, and he is an incredible climber. He seems super modest. All these guys seem really modest, which I love. Onley, super modest. Kind of not sure if he's even going to be up there. He says in the interviews, and he's up there. I would love to see him get a top 5. Yeah. And then we have Vauquelin. He was up there as well. A lot of people predicted him to suck in the mountains, and he definitely has been struggling, a little yo-yo here and there, but he came good in the end and finished right where he needed to finish. And so he is still in contention for that top 10, top 5 position. He's more of a top 10 rider, I think, in my book. But really awesome to see these young riders, young whippersnappers up there. They're going to be battling for the top 5, top 10, and we are going to see them battling in the future. So awesome to see that showcase in the Tour de France. So yeah, that's it. We're an hour into this podcast. I'm a little bit hoarse now. And that's what I got for you guys. So amazing stage today. I'm looking forward to the time trial tomorrow. Some of the things that we're going to be looking at looking at the riders, looking at the performances, cadence. If you have good legs, if you're looking for high performance, you're going to want to match high power with high cadence. It's faster. But if you have a high level of fatigue and your central nervous system is fried, the high cadence is not possible. So you're going to be watching the riders. Are they able to do the high cadence, or are they lower? Are they struggling? That's going to be also an indicator of fueling. You can't do the high cadence if you have lower glycogen. And so we're going to be looking for that. Technique on the bike, heels up. We know that is the position of choice. Tadej started this kind of heels up technique using your glutes. Be watching riders and see if their body is functioning at the high level, if they're able to keep those heels up, drive with the glutes, super strong on the bike. As riders fatigue, that becomes more difficult. They drop the heels. We saw Jonas today in the final part of the race, dropping his heels, really squirming all over the bike. And so we're going to look and see, does he have more solid technique on the bike? That's going to show us how he's recovering from this first part of the tour, and specifically today. We're going to be looking for that. Respiration rate, watch their stomachs. That's a good place to see their respiration rate and how controlled they are with their breathing. When you're time trialing, I like to follow my respiration rate. That helps me gauge the limit of where I can really push and ride that threshold of power and how much oxygen I can get in. Tadej does a really good job of diaphragmatic breathing. I posted this on Instagram. Of course, the entire world jumped on here and they said, everybody already knows that, Tom. Everybody breathes with their stomach. I learned this in 1972, blah, 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 blah. Guys, go try it when you're riding. It's super freaking hard. Yes, everybody's stomach moves when you're breathing, but to actually push it out and get your lungs to open up and drop down and consistently do that while pushing high power. Now that's super hard. Watch the riders, specifically Tadej, really push that stomach out, get massive breaths, and be able to do it while creating super high amounts of power on the bike. It is really hard to do. You can try this out on your workouts. Obviously, it's easy when you're riding low intensity, but go rip that power, raise it up to like what he does, 480, 490, 500, and then let me know if you're able to push that stomach out and really get a good deep breath with your lungs. It is super hard, and watch the riders tomorrow do that. A couple more things to look at, where their eyes are pointed. Are they looking up the climb? Are they looking up the road? Are they looking straight down at their front wheel? Yes, they're going to be glancing in and out of the power meter, looking at the numbers, trying to follow something. But one of the things that top pros do is they look ahead. They go where they look where they want to go. And it is much easier to go faster if you're looking ahead and you're looking at the terrain and you're saying, I want to go that direction and I want to go faster. Another thing to look for tomorrow is shifting. You'll notice that the top riders will constantly shift and try to see if they can get one gear harder, see if they can keep that same cadence and that same power. And then after, if that gear pushes back on them, they'll shift back. You'll have to look to the tops of their hands because the shifters now are on the hoods. Or on the tops of the hoods. Obviously, they've always been on the hoods, but the tops of the hoods, the riders can shift up there. So watch that. And yeah, I think those are some good things for you guys to check out in the race tomorrow. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to doing another podcast tomorrow. So thanks for listening. I know I had a lot of stuff in this one. Super excited. I thought there were some really cool storylines and some findings. And yeah, looking for Visma and Jonas to get back on track tomorrow. Looking for Tadej to continue his domination. Again, I think he's the best rider and he deserves to win. He should win. The world is right if he is winning. But we want to see Jonas keep progressing, closing the gap, or at least getting close as he can possible, and solidifying that beautiful second place. Again, there's nothing wrong with second place in the Tour de France. Amazing result, especially when you're dealing with the greatest rider of all time. So, nothing, no shame in that. And so looking forward to seeing him perform super well. And then the big question is, who ends up third on the stage? Is it going to be Remco? Is it going to be Lipovitz? I think it's going to be one of those three. Maybe Roglic gets in there. You never know. You can never count him out. He's good at these things. And would love to see Jorgensen come back after today and do a really good race. So anyway, that's what I got. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you tomorrow. Later.